Alright, welcome to part 4 of the grappling tutorial. So I'm just going to continue right where we left off. Basically, I just need to write this function, which gets called when the character, or when the hook hits the target, and the character should start moving towards the target using the grappling hook. So, let me run this real quick so I can show you what we're about to do. So you'll notice when he gets close, when the player gets close to the target, not the hook, but when the player actually gets very close to the target, he'll actually do another little jump. So if I run this, and I do it, right there at the end, he does a little jump. It's a lot easier to see if you're going not uphill so much. You can see he jumps a little bit. It's really easy to see if you're going downhill. So if I go from here to here, you can see when he hits the ground, he does a little jump. And the reason he does that is because it makes it a lot smoother for handling landing, because you're always just kind of doing a little boost when you land, just to make sure you land on top of what you were trying to land on. So we want to check for when the player gets really close to the end, we want to do a little bit of a jump. So to do that, let's drag in the owning character, and we'll say get distance 2, and then we want to get the distance to our current target. And if that is less than some number, then we know we want to do the jump. So just like we did for the starting jump, which is the jump at the start, we also have a jump at the end. So I'm going to just duplicate this and call it end jump distance, and then compile it. And then for this one, I'm going to set it down to 100 because we want this one to be pretty small, because we don't want him to do that jump until he's really close to it. But again, you can modify this value and tweak it a little bit if you want, but 100 works pretty well. So we'll do a branch. So when you first start out, this is going to return false because you're not going to be close to it yet. So if you're not close to it yet, then all we want to do is just set the velocity of the character so that he moves towards the target. So to do that, we'll do this false first. So we'll say owner to target, and this is already normalized, yep. So owner to target, and we'll do float multiply, and we want to multiply it by however fast we want the character to go. So again, we can just make another variable for this. So right click, promote to variable. We'll make it constant as well. So drag it in there, say private and blueprint read only. And we will call this the character grapple speed, like so. Character grapple speed. And then we want to set the velocity of the character to that. So we'll drag in the owning character, and we'll say get movement component, and then we'll say set velocity, and hook that up to the false, like that. And one thing I just want to point out real quick, so all these variables that we're making blueprint read only, or like all these constant variables, if you go back to your third person character, you can see them all. So if you click on your grapple component and you hit this little expansion button, so you can see them all right here. So you can edit them very easily inside your character as well, but just thought I'd point that out. Okay, so now this should do something, probably not that amazing of a something, but it should do something. So if we go ahead and run this now, and we try to grapple somewhere, we'll try to grapple over here. You can see he jumps. Oh, I don't think I set the speed to anything. So we need to set the speed. So let's set it to like 1500. Again, feel free to set it to whatever you want. So now if we try this again, press F, jumps, and then he starts moving towards the target. But you can see he kind of gets stuck here when he gets to the end because he doesn't really know what to do. So that's the part we will write next. So it's going to do this true at this point because he's really close to the end. But we don't have anything here, which is why he's just kind of chilling there. So once he gets there, we want to do that little jump that I talked about at the end. And then we want to basically clean everything up, like delete the grapple because he no longer needs it, and set the current target back to none and all that stuff. So we're going to be calling launch character again, so we'll just say launch character. Oh, we need the owning character for that. So drag in the owning character and say launch character. So this velocity here is kind of a tricky one to figure out a good value to use. But what I ended up doing is I used the initial direction that you were moving in times some amount, and then I added to the z. So that made it so that it would kind of launch you like in the direction you're already going at, but also up a little bit so that you would jump. And you can play around with this if you want once we finish, but this seemed to work pretty well. So the initial velocity, and then I said float times 100, and I just kind of put numbers in here because I was kind of playing with it. I didn't bother making them variables, but you definitely could if you wanted. So the initial direction times 100, and then I split this, and then I took the max of the z value of that, whatever the z value was, in 500. So that ensured that if you're already going uphill really fast, like it wouldn't add even more z velocity to you because you're already going up really fast. But if you're just going like straight or just up a little bit or even down, then it would make sure that you always get a little bit of a jump. And so we're going to use that. So then we'll say make vector. Actually, we don't even need to use make vector. We can just split this guy. And so we want x, y, and z. Oops, z. And then make sure you select both of these so that it overrides the velocity to whatever we're passing to it, like so. So now if we run this, you should see what I'm talking about. So you should see a little bit of a hop at the end so that he gets up to where he needs to go. So if I run this and hop, maybe that's just because we're not done yet, because we're not setting, oh yeah, because we need to set the mode back to retracted. So yeah, let's finish writing this, and then we can test it. So we need to set the current target to nothing. So let's drag in set current target, and just leave this new target empty because we're basically setting it to nothing. And then we want to destroy the grappling hook and the grappling line. So grab the grappling line and just say destroy actor, like so. And then we want to drag in the grappling. Actually, we want to set this to nothing just to be safe. And we want to do the same thing for the grappling hook. So grappling hook, destroy actor, set the grappling hook to nothing. Oops. And then finally, we want to set the grapple state back to retracted because we've finished. And so we want them to be able to grapple again. So now hopefully this works. Let's try it again. So we go and I aim. Jump. Okay, so it is working, but the grappling line, I actually did forget about this. So the grappling line, you see it just keeps going like way past the end. It doesn't actually stop. And that's because we need to add a little bit of code to the event tick of the grappling hook. But the actual functionality of the player, well, in terms of what the player does, is working. So we just want to make it so that the grappling hook actually stops when it gets to where it was trying to go. So let's go to our grappling hook and go to the event graph, I think is where I need to put this. Let me double check my other code. Yes, so we actually did forget about this, but this isn't going to be a ton of work. So let's zoom in and we'll say event tick. So basically what we want to do is check if the hook is past the end, or if it's reached the destination. And if it has, then we want to stop its velocity. So we can say get actor location, which is just the location of the hook, and then we'll say distance. And we can actually just use distance squared for this. Distance is actually kind of an expensive operation because it has to do with square root. So they've added this distance squared, which it just does the distance, but it doesn't take the square root of it. So it's just a little bit more performant. And if all you're doing is just comparing distances, then you can use the squared versions of them because it doesn't really make a difference. And so we want to get the square distance between the actor's location and the starting location, and we want to check if that is greater, so float greater than or equal to. And then we want to drag in the target and get its location, so get actor location. And we want to get the square distance of that, so distance squared vector for the starting location. Hook that up, and then we'll do a branch. So this is basically just checking, has it reached or gone past where it was supposed to be. And if it has, then we want to set its location back to where it's supposed to be, because it's possible that it went past the end, like it went past the target in a frame. And so we just want to make sure that we set it back to where it's supposed to be. So we'll just say set actor location. And the location we want to set it to is the starting location. And then plus, so we'll say vector plus vector. Let me scoot this over. Starting location plus the direction times, so float multiply, times the distance between the start and the end. So start and distance, make sure you use normal distance and not squared this time, between the start and the end. So this is where it needs to be. We'll set it there, and we can just say teleport. And then finally, we want to set the velocity of the projectile movement to 0 so that it stops moving. So drag that in and say set velocity. And we're going to pass in 0, 0, 0. Okay, so now if we run this, let's try this again. It fires, and then you can see it stops when it gets to the end. So if we just, let me just test to make sure everything's good here. So if we drag in an actor, or where is this? Basic cube. I just want to make sure it's behaving like it did in my other project before I say we're good to go. So yeah, you can just basically put these things wherever you want in your game. Let's put one up here. This would be a good test right at the edge. Something like that. And we'll try to grapple up there. Yep, so I think this is working correct. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the tutorial, then please leave a like and subscribe. I also have a Patreon. If you guys want to support me on there, I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.